The biggest story to come out of this year's Saudi Arabia Grand Prix would have to hands down go to Oliver Bearman, who not only made his Formula One racing debut, he also ended up winning Driver of the Day. And he made history while doing it, because he is the third youngest racer to ever have a Formula One debut, and unlike his predecessors, his situation was a bit unplanned. You see, what had happened was one of Ferrari's best drivers went down with appendicitis. I'm talking Carlos Sainz. He was rushed to the hospital immediately and needed to go through surgery. And thankfully for the F1 community and Carlos Sainz's family, the surgery was successful and he will be back on the track soon. But in this case, one man's failed appendix is another man's opportunity. You see, Oliver Bearman went to bed on Thursday night believing he would be racing in Formula 2 in Jeddah. And on Friday morning, he was awoken to the news that he would now be competing in the Saudi Arabia Grand Prix. And oh boy, did this man show up. You see, Ollie had taken full advantage of his opportunity, and when Friday came around and qualifiers needed to take place for the Grand Prix, he showed out. He ended up finishing 11th place, which meant that's where he would be starting on a Saturday, which is a great position for him, especially considering that he was just thrown into the mix without any preparation really. And a lot of the top end racers in Formula One had a lot of good things to say about Bearman's performance in qualifying. One, of course, being his team leader, Charles Leclerc, who had a lot of high praise for the young man. He had said how he had done a fantastic job and was extremely talented. Now, a direct quote from Leclerc here is that this is one of the most difficult tracks of the calendar for sure, being a street track and so fast as well, but he handled it perfectly. And as soon as he got with the engineers in the morning, he had so much to understand in order for him to be ready, and yet, he was able to accomplish his goals. He was only 0.6 seconds off of the fastest track time in qualifying, and only drifted about 0.3 seconds behind Leclerc himself. So I honestly believe that Oliver Bearman overachieved and surpassed everybody's expectations. And of course, this was all just a lead up to race day on Saturday. Now, of course, Bearman would start the race in 11th place, and slowly but surely he would move up the rankings. Now, of course, there was a bit of an incident in lap 7 involving Lance Stroll, racer for Aston Martin. And can you guess what Lance Stroll did here? Yeah, he crashed out, because of course he did. If I had a dime for every time Lance Stroll crashed out, I'd be a billionaire at this point. But anyway, it shaped up the race. That's why I'm bringing it up. Many racers decided to pit early. And doing this, this was one of Ferrari's tactics. Both Charles Leclerc and Oliver Bearman pitted early. However, some racers didn't. Some teams just didn't feel like they should. And two of the big names whose teams decided against this were Lance Norris for McLaren and Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes. Now, for a majority of the race, these two were going back and forth with each other. Now, Lewis Hamilton had the lead over Lance Norris and prevented him from passing many times. But eventually, Hamilton's tires wore out, Lance Norris was able to make a pass, and very late in the race, they both decided to pit. And when they decided to do so, Bearman took full advantage of this, went up into 7th place, and now for the last 10 or 15 laps, Lewis Hamilton and Lance Norris would have to try their best to catch up to the rookie. And of course, they could have done so. However, Lance Norris came out of the pit in the lead in front of Lewis Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton tried his best to break past Norris. Unfortunately, that didn't work. Norris held him off very well, but that also slowed him down in the process, and neither were able to gain any progress towards Oliver Bearman. That led to a 7th place finish and 6 points for Team Ferrari. So shout out to Bearman for not only finishing the race in the top 10, but doing it in 7th place. Of course, his teammate Charles Leclerc ended up in 3rd place, grabbing 16 points for Team Ferrari, and you can probably guess who number 1 and number 2 are, both Red Bull racers. You got Max Verstappen, 2nd win of the season, Is he probably gonna win F1 this year? Yeah, most likely, okay? And it's not gonna be close. But whatever. We dealt with Lewis Hamilton for the last decade. What's another superstar, you know, just taking over the sport? And of course, Sergio Perez did his thing. Finished in second place after starting in third. So congrats to Sergio for that. But enough about them. Let's get to Oliver Bearman, who in his post-race press conference had said that he felt physically destroyed after his F1 debut. And he had felt like the track and the car had put a lot of pressure on his body. And you hear this all the time. Most racers' necks are destroyed because of the high speeds and, you know, very sharp turns that they are needing to make on the racetrack for 50 laps at a time. And while his body may feel destroyed, he will go down in history as one of the best debut racers, because the two younger guys that had raced before him, one was Max Verstappen, who did it at like 17 years old. However, although he finished 11th in polling in qualifying, he ended up having to retire at the 2015 Australian Grand Prix due to engine failure. And the second youngest racer ever, Lance Stroll, in the 2017 Australian Grand Prix. And can you guess what happened? He also had to retire, because what does Lance Stroll do best? Yeah, not finish races. How is this man still in F1? No idea. I guess that Aston Martin couldn't find a second good racer alongside Fernando Alonso. So they're just going to be stuck with Mr. Lance Stroll. For how long? No idea. I do think that the racers and their teams are going to be shaken up a lot come winter. But we were a long ways from that. Anyway, Oliver Bearman showed up and showed out in Saudi Arabia. What does this mean for the kid's future? Oh, he most definitely deserves a seat next season. And it definitely won't be at Ferrari, because they just signed Charles Leclerc to a contract extension through 2029 and have also recently signed Lewis Hamilton for the 2025 season and beyond. So yeah, he won't spend the rest of his career at Ferrari, but Oliver Bearman will get an opportunity somewhere else. If not now, maybe, probably soon, okay? Will it be with a shittier team? Probably, so his car won't be as good, but who knows? With as fantastic of a racer as Oliver Bearman is, I am excited to watch his career prosper and develop. I mean, this kid has been rising through the ranks for a while. Just 2 years ago, he was in Formula 3, and he did pretty well in Formula 3, which is what got him moved up to Formula 2 for Team Ferrari, and now we're seeing him today. So anyway, that's about it for this video. My first F1 racing video, but I recently got into the sport. Love it, so I'll probably be making more videos on it. Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.